Hi, I'm Laura Rolfe, host of Powered by Franchising and CEO of Mint Franchise Consultants. I am excited to welcome Peter Kourounis, the Franchise Development Vice President for 1-800 Plumber Air to the show today. I have worked with Peter and helped place numerous candidates with 1-800 Air. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Awesome to be here, Laura. Thank you so much for having me.
So we met early in my franchise consulting career at a national conference in Florida, and I was so impressed by how buttoned up you are with the franchise discovery process and your experience in franchising. Do you remember that meeting?
Well, I thought you were going to say you were impressed with how I looked in my button-down shirt.
Oh, well,
A
that
nice
too.
choice of words, but yes, I remember that meeting vividly. Yes.
Yes, well, and presented 1-800 Air as an option to numerous candidates. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get involved with franchising in the first place, Peter?
A very interesting story. Franchising has always been in my blood, in my background. It's a very unique story. I kind of grew into the world of franchising because my father started his own breakfast and lunch restaurant as a franchise. So as a young man in the going through college, um, got a little bit of a look into that, and a lot of kids, and I say kids because I was a kid at that point, but a lot of young adults and kids don't get the luxury of really understanding what they want to do in life. And I was one of those that actually did. I knew I wanted to be in franchising. I knew I wanted to start a franchise. And I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps with his restaurant. I just didn't choose to go into food. That was not my calling. My calling was my first love in franchising was actually my passion in life, and that's creative design. I started my own sign and graphics franchise and did that for a number of years before and growing that to about 12 different locations in the tri-state area. It was a little small regional based franchise. Um, Before selling that to the team over there at Propelled Brands, and uh, that happened in 2019. And then we all know what happened right after that. But after selling the business, I kind of chose to stay in the franchising space. And that's how I found 1-800 Plumber Air. I kind of stumbled upon a job opportunity to actually get my feet in the ground with them in a general manager sense for running a location, and then while also moonlighting as uh, I think the title was then regional franchise director of franchise development, something to that tune. And I was responsible for franchising this brand, but only in the states that this franchisee purchased the rights to develop in. So it was very unique. It was a very unique barrier of entry into this brand, but I'm so thankful for it. I was hired after my second interview. I never ran a plumbing company before, and it was definitely a rough time for a lot of us. If you can recall that 2019, late 20, or early 2020 year, the world was upside down and heading in that direction. To be upside down, I was just really lucky enough to stay in the world of franchising, where many were getting laid off and many were not sure what was going to happen. And finding 1-800 Plumber Air at that time is certainly a gift from someone above. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I too had, my parents were franchisees growing up. And so I saw the gift of being an entrepreneur. They were in the beer business, so loosely associated with restaurants. But it took me a lot longer to find that I too love franchising and found my niche right around that 2019, 2020 area. So tell us a little bit about 1-800 Plumber Air. What the business is all about, and do you have to be a plumber to invest in 1-800 Plumber Air?
Yeah, I think that's the the lie that many people tell themselves is that the franchise model requires a knowledge in the technical space of the business model. You know, you need to know how to paint to be painting, to be a paint in the painting business. You need to know how to be a plumber to be in the plumbing business. And that might actually work in in the sense of like, okay, if you're a man in the van or a Chuck in a truck type of business model, but that's not our business model. Our business model is built entirely on exactly how I came into this franchise. So I'm living proof. I'm validation for our franchise candidates in their own discovery. I teach them a lot about what I went through as even just as an employee, as a general manager with no background in the plumbing space at all or in the HVAC space at all, and coming from a B2B business where I was designing signs, selling signs, making signs, installing signs. This kind of came into the world of, wow, let me watch all these pieces kind of grow. I have a person that handles the calls and schedules the appointments. I have a technician in a truck that goes and is dispatched to those appointments. And then they are performing an in home service. And that was very eye opening because I learned basically my first week in operation that I was not really involved in the consumer transaction. And the only time that the owner or manager, in my case, was involved in the consumer transaction was in a support role of some sort. So when you're thinking about support, where does support need to be held? Like maybe it's helping a technician get a customer over the decision of just maybe they want to push the trigger on the pull the trigger on the sale, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a discount that they're looking for that only can be given by the owner. Maybe something like that, or maybe it's just watching the operation model unfold, looking for areas to improve upon. Maybe it's communication, maybe it's internal communication, maybe it's new features to our software that we use. But ultimately, your job as a manager in this and as an owner in this business is to watch it all play out because it's really simple to get started. It's really simple operation model when you really think about it. And your job is kind of like be the head coach on the sidelines. I often compare it, Laura, and you've heard me maybe do this with a couple of your candidates, but
Hmm.
I've often compared being an owner of 1-800 Plumber Plus Air to like a football coach.
Hmm.
And I'm not a big football fan, but the analogy is really true. Like you've assembled your own team. You have a team of players, and there's a playbook that's handed to you, and you're supposed to carry out that playbook. And when a play is called, the head coach obviously observes, and the good head coaches, I should say, if it's carried out incorrectly, they're there coaching and making sure that that doesn't happen again the next time that that play is called. And then when a play is run correctly and a sale is made or a touchdown in this case is carried out, it's a celebration. It's a celebration. It's a celebratory win for that team. And in ways, that's exactly what you do. You're sometimes a cheerleader. You're a relationship builder. You're someone that's following a playbook and executing on it and really finding your own path inside that playbook to do it your own way.
Exactly. So you have a variety of different owners that you work with. What's an ideal candidate for 1-800 Plumber Plus Air?
Yeah, I think the ideal candidate persona, if you will, we look for two individuals that I've kind of been over the last several years really just nailing down. We've been a little bit more focused on being a little lenient, giving the ability of business ownership to people that uh, have yearned for it. Um, but now we're a little bit more in a position where we're looking at this and saying, okay, we've learned from some of our mistakes. We've learned from some of the strenuous points of our current ownership group. And we're looking at people now today and we're saying that person needs to have a technological background. They need to have business management or management of people of some sort. They need to be able to have come from a background where they've managed a team of people. And hopefully that team of people is not a remote team of people. That's actually an in-person role.
Okay.
And this one here has made its way to the top of my list over the last year, as we've looked at how our company has grown in the last 12 months. You need to be able to speak the blue collar language. This is becoming a more of a need than I ever thought that it needed to. A white collar individual coming into this business needs to be able to be a chameleon to the fact that you also need to be able to communicate and leverage those communication skills to blue collar workers who are a very rare breed personality type. They are set in their ways. Contentment usually sets in very early in their employment with you. And when things are not done right, or things are not done to your liking, you need to be able to communicate that in a way where it doesn't make that technician or blue collar worker feel inferior to you. You need to work in team-like environment. So speaking that blue collar language, not allowing your technicians to feel like they are tools, but they are more people. And that's become a little bit more of an interesting attribute that we're looking for. It's a little hard for us to figure that out in discovery, but we do bring it up, and we do talk a lot about culture building and how they would handle blue collar workers nowadays, more so than we ever have before.
Well, that really helps with identifying a master plumber to be part of the business and then creating that culture of people feeling like they're part of the business and some ownership from the technician part of it as well. So I like that you've included that ability to communicate with the blue collar worker as part of the requirements or part of the discussion to ensure the success of your future franchisees.
If you're not a franchise system that's learning from what's going on within your system, if sales and development's not talking to operations on a consistent basis, there's undoubtedly going to be failures in your system somewhere, or cracks in your system somewhere. So our development team, myself leading that team, talks to our operations team quite consistently, along with our marketing team, to get a general sense of like, what's the direction, how can we improve. We're always looking to become better. That's the number one pillar of our four pillar operations model, is becoming better. So how do we do that? And we actually align pretty well now with the ethos of our operations model, where all teams are in sync with the right type of owner that we need to be having here in our franchise.
So you have a lot of successful franchisees with 1-800 Plumber Plus Air. I think our listeners really enjoy hearing stories of success, and perhaps you can share one or two of your franchisees, their journey, why they chose 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, and what makes them successful.
Am I allowed to mention them by name?
Yes, maybe first
Yes.
names.
Oh, maybe a first name. Okay. Maybe a first name. We have a Yeah. I will go ahead and talk about one in particular that's very personal to me. Um, a gentleman in Oklahoma has. Where do I start? Geez, I know we're gonna be. I gotta probably be brief with this because this is a long story. Um, Okay, so let's start with this. We have a franchise owner here in Oklahoma who I ultimately awarded a franchise to. So that's the end story. But um, there was a lot of tribulations in my mind about whether or not this particular person was qualified enough, both financially and also operationally. He didn't really have a lot of business ownership experience. He came from a background in automotive sales and repair, in the vehicle, in a used auto industry environment. It wasn't quite team building. It wasn't quite culture building. He also had a very thick accent, being that he was not actually from here. He was from another country. Um, but I've always enjoyed every single one of our phone calls and our Zoom calls together. So I felt a deeper connection with this person. And one time I remember him asking in a very polite way uh, if I would consider him to be a franchise owner, if he would be blessed to become part of this team, be part of this family. And I resonated with that a little bit with my faith. I was looking at him and saying, wow, he actually really wants to do this. There's a yearning inside, a burning fire that he believes that he belongs here. And I made that perfectly clear to our executive team when they asked me if they thought that if I thought he'd be a good fit. Uh, and then okay, so ultimately he got awarded a franchise, and we celebrated that as a whole. And I still have the video message that he sent me after awarding that franchise. He was in the car, and he just gave me a 3-minute video message that he texted me, and I swear I'll cherish that. It'll never make its way off my phone. I'll hold on to that as my North Star, if you will. But he he struggled out of the gate. We talk a lot about success stories, but this one was a I was for many months I was looking at this and saying that I made a mistake. Um, his revenue was down. He had a hard time building culture. He had a hard time retaining employees. He went through, some people would say finding a master plumber is difficult. This gentleman had gone through like 6 master plumbers inside of 6 months. It was very challenging to maintain a relationship. And we at our team had discussed, potential exit strategies, um, potentially looking at resale opportunities for a location that just opened up. It would have been challenging and difficult. But then our support team had a breakthrough moment. We started to see the engagement in our weekly training classes. When you're struggling, the last thing that you want to do and hear as a franchisee is a franchise, I'm sorry, as a franchisor, is a franchisee saying things to you or doing things to you that are deviating from the model. That's the red flag that says, okay, we need to begin thinking about an exit strategy here, because this person's not getting it. When you're not showing up to our weekly coaching calls, and we hear that you're out helping a plumber finish a job, that's not ideally what we want our owners doing. We want our owners committed to their weekly coaching calls with our president of operations, Mike Collins here. That's something that we do specifically. We don't hand our new owners over to a inexperienced coach. We put them right at the top with the president of operations and co-owner of the franchise for the first year, until we get a general sense of they understand it, they're good, and we can hand them off to our director of training and support and other members of our support team. But Mike, I got to give him all of the accolades here. Him and his support team did a wonderful job of turning that situation around, where he went from an absolute low in revenue and inside of 30 days an absolute high, and was one of our top performing locations just by just getting that engagement, changing of the mindset, if you will, shifting the way that an owner thinks about this business model. Is a very there's a very calculated approach to it, because you can get down in the dumps if you don't change things up really quickly. I myself know what that feels like. But this is a success story that we're talking about here. So this gentleman has now expanded into another territory, expanded his fleet, and to think that we shot out of the gate in a more stumbling fashion. This gentleman's now one of the bigger success stories that we have here in the franchise. We talk about it a lot. He actually even won several comeback player of the year awards at our last brand conference. I was happy to see that.
Well, and I think some people may feel that if they invest in a franchise, it's going to be easy. And it's still hard work, whether you start a business from scratch or you invest in a franchise business model. But telling the story of this gentleman in Oklahoma, knowing that he had a great coach in Mike Collins to help him understand that you need to be present for the calls and follow the business model. And if you can do these certain things, you can certainly be more apt to turn things around. And so it's exciting to hear that he's expanded and has another territory and has a big fleet of vehicles, which means he has a big team. So change that culture in his business as well.
Yeah, just a little shift of the mindset is all that gentleman needed. It was a little bit of a task, but certainly, yeah, like you said, you could turn a weed into a rose here, and that's one of the ones that stands out in my career here with 1-800 Plumber. Was there?
Yeah, I have a few of those as well that, I'm like, are they am I putting them in the right business and making sure that they have every opportunity to succeed and be successful. That's one of the reasons why I love showing 1-800-PLUMBER+AIR, because you are terrific at taking people through the discovery process. You don't sugarcoat things ever, and you paint a real picture, but you're compassionate and a good listener, and to make sure that your values at 1-800-PLUMBER+AIR and your pillars align with the candidates.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the compliment. It means a lot. It's I think it might have been you that said that my story is needs to come out in the discovery, and I've never forgotten that. I think there's a lot that you kind of paved the way for my approach when it comes to talking to some candidates. I mean, we both kind of got started around the same time in this, and with our consultant networks here. And I think just hearing an outside voice talk about my experience with 1-800-Plumber, how I got started. I may not have been an owner when I first started, but I did everything an owner would normally do. And so yeah, that knowledge, that compassion that you're referring to is just maybe palpable because I'm telling my own story. So when
Absolutely.
I hear it, when I get in front of a candidate, I make sure every single candidate knows about that story now, and that's thanks to you.
So walk us through, what would somebody expect to learn during the discovery process with 1-800-PLUMBER+AIR?
Well, they'll know the basics. They'll get to know the basics. They'll get to know like the financial requirements and certainly what the average day looks like. And I talk a lot about the consumer transaction inside the discovery process now. But they're going to learn things like licensing. They're going to learn what more about the training and support. I don't usually go too deep into the software that we use, but that's now becoming a bit more of a question and topic that people like to ask about. So I do talk about that a lot. We talk about our training methods and how we're better and becoming better and different in those efforts. But we also talk about they'll also learn a little bit more about how we've grown as a company and how we've learned from some of our own mistakes. I don't usually like to just talk about all the great things. I like to talk about, these are the things that I think we could have done better in, that we are continuing to do better in. We've recently brought on a director of franchise support, a director of training, and we've now shifted to a two times, one in Plumber University and one at their location of an Airbnb training, which is just an absolute fabulous approach to um, getting that in-home experience in the eyes of the business owner, because they don't usually get a chance to experience what a 1-800-Plumber+AIR employee technician does in the home. Now we rent an Airbnb. We make sure that everybody comes and it's a real home with real utilities and real problems. And we're going in there and we're addressing what the technician looks like inside the home and how we're making a difference comparatively to other plumbing and other HVAC companies. And what that approach looks like is very eye-opening each and every time that I get a chance to see it.
Wow, that is a very unique approach, where the franchisees get to see real life boots on the ground. This is what it's going to look like. And what a cool approach with renting an Airbnb, because all
Right?
Airbnbs I've ever rented have a sink and a shower and a water heater and perhaps an or a water softener. So all the things that you would need to know about in your business.
Yeah, I keep my eyes on what's going on in the franchising world, and you get these brands that build their own like house inside their warehouse, inside their facility. It's like their training home, right? And we've wanted to do that, but what a wonderful idea, outside the box idea to do this in a random home. It's always a different home with different issues and different things that we got to look at, and that's what keeps it fun. That's what keeps it like energized. It's always something new. It's never mundane. So yeah, it's always another 1-800-Plumber truck showing up to a house, knocking on the door the same way, and the approach is the same way. But once they get in the home, in the vestibule of the home, oh man, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch how different it is from what real life technicians in other companies and other franchises are doing, and how they approach just tackling a situation with our software and some of the things that we do. like courtesy inspections, etc. But it's just a wonderful way of changing the stigma that people have for plumbing companies. It's definitely something that we also would talk about in discovery. Is this is what we're setting ourselves to fix? Is that stigma that they're always late, they're always charging an arm and a leg, never really hearing me out, showing up late or not showing up at all, not in uniform, leaving my house a mess. These are the complaints that our feasibility study has a lot of data on. And to change all of that, you can say you're going to, but to actually watch it happen and have the brand, the powerful brand name behind that is really fascinating because we actually do feel like we have the right branding to change this stigma nationwide.
Absolutely. So there are a few different plumbing franchises out there. What are some additional differentiators with 1-800 Plumber Plus Air when people are looking at a couple of different blue collar franchise options or plumbing options?
Yeah, well, the obvious one is the plus air part, right? That's
Yes.
that's the that's the big differentiator right there, is to be marketing our brand as the only combined plumbing and HVAC opportunity is going to set them up to scale their business larger by not necessarily needing to acquire more territory by casting a wider net, but by penetrating the market deeper by going into your existing customer base and taking your plumbing customer and turning them into an HVAC customer, and HVAC customers being turned into plumbing customers. That's going to give you a significant advantage without having to buy a second model, a second franchise fee, a second territory, just a second operations model. So just looking at what we're doing and how we're going about doing it, it really is two industries in one without making that type of financial commitment. So we'll start with that, but that is not the only one. It is a huge one, a monumental one in the large scheme of things. But we're also going to take that deeper in support and training. This is something that people ask about, they don't know about, but when we're talking about our training and our support, let's talk about our support for a quick second. Every franchise that they can go look at has a some sort of franchise support system. What we've been able to realize is that a lot of that franchise support system is on a reaction basis model. So there's a problem, they get asked the question, here's the fix. That's very reactionary. We are very proactive with our support. And by being proactive, in order to be a proactive support system, you have to meet with your franchisees weekly. Now, you've heard me talk about that before,
Yes.
but that is a significant value add here, is that our support team is involved in their business operations from week one, and we know everything that's going on in their business on a week by week basis. So there's a significant amount of intimate hand holding going on with that franchisee and our franchise support system. Things like how much get money did they spend on gas this week? How much time did they spend driving around between appointments? We call that window time. We how much time, how much money did we leave on the table by not following the process, or how much money did we win by following the process? We'll look at that two different ways. Um, and for a franchise support system to know technicians' names by their first name, we can get that partnership level support. Franchisees in our system often look at us as a partner in their franchise business, but we're not necessarily owning their business, but we are acting as an equitable partner in their business on a day by day operation. So we'll talk about franchise support as a huge differentiator there by our weekly meetings. That's a mandatory thing. We talked about that with our success story. Not showing up to those meetings is considered an act of, like, you're venturing off course. Getting back on those weekly meetings is very important to the success of your business model. We're all here looking for the same thing: success, increased revenue, increased profit margins, increased profits in general. This is our way of helping you do it. Let's make sure that you do it.
And those are all reasons why I love 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, because you are there communicating regularly as a partner of the franchisee to invest your time and resources in their success. You're the experts. And so not all of your franchisees have experience in plumbing or HVAC and or in management, and understanding the different intricacies to set them up for success by having those weekly communications is really, really important. I'm often asked what the franchisor does as far as supporting the marketing and the sales aspect. How am I going to get my clients? Who's going to do that? What kind of marketing support does the franchisor provide for my business? Can you address that or speak to that for us, Peter?
So this is a topic that's asked about on every single initial discovery call. I would agree with you. Just as much as they ask you, they ask me as well, because it is different for almost every brand. There's brands that do marketing for you and kind of hand you your leads, and we are not one of those types of organizations. We do have a thorough understanding of how this business model works. And the way that I approach it is typically by asking a question. So, Laura, if you wouldn't mind indulging me here, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
If you needed a plumber in your house, we'll stick with plumbing for now. Same question relates to HVAC if you'd like, but if you needed a plumber in your house, and assuming that your husband is not handy enough to do it himself, so let's say it's a significant issue, maybe no hot water or no hot air. Where you live, hot air is important. So
Yes.
maybe you have no hot air today, and we don't know why. Okay, your house is very cold. How would you go about in your household? How would you handle securing somebody to come to your house to come fix it?
Well, I would see what the problem was. I might go on Angie's List or Thumbtack or Nextdoor and see who are other people using and who are some of the recommendations. But probably before that, I would ask a friend, like, do you know the name of a plumber or an air conditioning person? If I didn't know you guys, you are in my area. But if I didn't know you, I would ask a friend, and if they didn't have a referral for me, I would look elsewhere for a referral.
Great answer. Great answers. I think you're probably labeled as more of a smart, educated buyer. But in what we see in our line of work is when you have such an urgent need like no hot air, the time to make those decisions are not as they're very short. You need to make that decision very quickly. So you mentioned a couple things there that I like to hear about. Nextdoor was an interesting one. I haven't heard that one yet. That was very fascinating. But Thumbtack and Angie's List, these are all part of the large majority of the country shop for our services on lead aggregates like this. They're not the only ones. Okay, there are several more. But there's also the powerhouse of Google. I'm surprised you didn't say Google there, but most people, when they answer that question, they say, I go to Google. But I love that you said, I'd ask a friend for a referral. That brings me to a second point, but let me make my first point first. In the world of today, I've been with this company now 5 years. I've seen what we did 5 years ago and what we're doing now, and how they're incredibly polar opposite. It used to be that you would need to just put money into a Google campaign, a Google pay-per-click, and do some SEO, and that's all you needed to do, and your phone would ring. Now, your phone rings, but it rings at a drastically reduced clip because of all of these lead aggregates, like you mentioned, Angie's List, Thumbtack, and some, where a customer is booking an appointment and telling you what's wrong through the app, and you're communicating with customers differently nowadays than you ever have done so before. So the simple status to what we do here is the message is we have a per truck marketing budget that you have to adhere by. So think of it like, here's the plan. You have how many trucks? One, two? Okay, two. Here's the 2 truck marketing plan. This is what we expect you to do. Now go out and do it. The franchise will manage it with you, but it doesn't fund it for our franchise owners. Um, so think of it like we might tell you to put $1,000 into this bucket, thumbtack bucket, to be competitive. But if you choose to spend $2,000, that's on you. If you spend $500, that's on you. That's your way of controlling your funds. But the plan is, if you're starting with two trucks, here is your two truck marketing plan. So to the extent of how the franchise supports you is that it's kind of tailor made, but you just have to follow it. That's the point why people buy a franchise. It's a plan. Here's the plan. Follow it.
Sure.
Um, Part of that plan, though, is in the referral building tactics. So there's a bit of what we just mentioned about is Nextdoor and Thumbtack and Angie's List. These are what I label as hunting opportunities. You need to make money today. We need to eat today, so we need to kill today. We need to actually kill it today and make a sale, do the repair, get paid, make some money, go home, do it again tomorrow. That happens, and it happens every day across the country. There is a lot of hunting going on. The farming side, the referral building side, is a part of our marketing plan. So getting out there in the community is now becoming a more of a characteristic that the owner has to have to be awarded a franchise. They have to have shown that they can do this. They have to show that they have done it before, or be willing to do it now. And there are many people that are not willing to do this, especially introverts. Introverts find it very difficult to actually be the mayor of the community persona that you've heard out in the LinkedIn world. That's what many franchises and home services are looking for. But I got to tell you, one thing here that makes tremendous amount of sense that we expect and we train on out of our owners is for them to be known as the character of the brand. So I like my name. My name's Pete. So you need to be networking yourself as Pete the plumber, Pete the painter, Pete the power washer. I don't think there's any other businesses I can think of that start with P, but that was kind of fun.
Peter
Um,
the plumber, I think, is perfect.
yeah,
I like your
Peter the
example.
plumber. And here's the interesting formula. This does not fall on deaf ears in our system, but the velocity of a 1-800 Plumber Plus Airs franchise operation to scale to some substantial revenue depends on the owner's ability to know 6 to 8 referral partners, and more importantly, for them to know who you are. And then you spend your first year developing and building on that trust and loyalty of those 6 to 8 referral partners. That's a very powerful statement that we make in our sales process with our candidates, but we carry that out all the way through Plumber University, where we talk about that during our marketing day. Is you have to be that Pete the plumber. That forget about branding 1-800 Plumber Plus Air. That's actually very easy to do because we have a very powerful brand. That's a whole different topic of conversation. But in order for your business to really flourish, that persona, that character that you have, people need to know of it. And in order to do that, you got to get yourself out there. So we have built around strategies of getting yourself out there that are not just quite joining a chamber of commerce or a BNI group. Yes, those are fundamental elements to it, but there are other ways. I won't go into those in grave detail, but
Sure.
there are other ways that we expect our franchisees to build upon that caricature of themselves.
Yeah, well, so anytime I've bought or sold a house, if I have any needs around the house, my automatic referral partner is going to be my realtor. So my realtor is going like, I need a plumber. Who would you recommend? And Kathy would give me the name of a plumber or an air conditioner person. So I can see that having those 6 to 8 referral partners be integral to the success.
Yeah,
So,
but you think about one of the most interesting points to that is that if you look at a service area of 350,000 people, the
mhm.
boundaries of that are probably going to have a, over 100 contractors, over 200 realtors, over 100 home inspectors, and there's that. restoration companies. You're probably going to have so many referral partners in the hundreds.
Yes.
But I didn't say that you need one from each of those categories. You just need 6 to 8 of them in
Total.
total, cumulative.
Hmm.
Like you can have 6 home inspectors that are funneling your business, and that would be more than you ever need.
Right.
6 powerful real estate agents, 6 restoration companies. It could be one realtor, one restoration company, one home inspector too. That's perfectly fine. But the scalability of your business it requires that. Otherwise, you're always living in a world where Angie's List is your best friend and Thumbtack is your best friend. You live and you die by what you're hunting, but there's no farming happening. So what does year 2 look like and year 3 look like? And I don't know if you go through this with your candidates, but for me, candidates, when they come into that first call, they always ask about first year results. Like, how much am I expected to make this year? My first year. It's a very common question, but I pivot that by saying this is a 10-year commitment. I don't, year 1 is the hardest year.
Right. You're
It's what
building
years 2.
that's you're laying the
Yeah, it's what
foundation for a strong business in year one, and then you grow from there. So yeah, I do have that conversation with my clients sometimes, but
that
some people think that you can buy a business and invest in it and then instantly you're making money. No, you have to farm, you have to do a little bit of hunting, you have to do those BNI and chamber meetings to lay the foundation. If you have a strong foundation, then you can build a skyscraper.
I love that. Oh, absolutely. A 10-year skyscraper. That's awesome. Uh,
Yes, because those need plumbing and air conditioning too.
well said.
um, so you love franchising so much. You're now involved in another franchise. Tell us about Patch It Up.
Yes, patch it up, drywall repair. So here's the story. Throughout my career with 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, in my current role, and even before that in my general manager role, I have fallen in love with our operations model. Personally, I have not seen an operations model in my professional career that is as dialed in and simplified as this operations model is here at 1-800 Plumber Plus Air. So when I looked at that, I went down a path of I wanted to diversify myself. I wanted to look at some other franchise. I wanted to become a franchisee, actually. And I had some partners lined up, some equitable investors willing uh, to go in with it on me, and I came across the drywall repair space. I was fascinated by it. I thought it brings me back to my roots, my uncle Steve, my dad building their restaurants, the smell of joint compound in the air. It's just something I cannot get out of the nostrils. It's
Hmm.
it's it's just a familiar feeling. And for some people that brings you back to, like, the glory days, your happy moments, memories, things like that. And I have a lot of really happy memories about my father and my uncle building businesses together, and that's just something that I can go deeper into, but I'll leave that alone. But anyway, the what I realized in the discovery of as a franchisee going down discovery of these brands was that the operations model was just so drastically different from what I'm preaching on that 1-800 Plumber Plus Air side. That these people in discovery were telling me, like, you need to come in with you need to be the one to do the estimates. You need to be the one that's going to operate the business model. And if you're not, you need to bring in a partner to do that. Not even a manager or general manager. You got to have an equity partner to be the one to do that. And I thought, wow, that's incredibly, like, complete pass on that for me. And then the second brand that I went down was more of a deviating from, like, that in-home experience that you heard me talk about with that Airbnb training, and it was just more of a, hey, yeah, I'll answer your inquiry on Thumbtack and you could send me a picture and I can give you a price on the app. And you take away that entire homeowner experience, and what are you really selling other than price? You're not selling any value. There's no value there. So I was, like, completely turned off by this, and immediately my mind shifted to, I'm gonna take this wonderful model over here at 1-800 Plumber Plus Air. I'm just gonna rip everything about plumbing and HVAC out of it, and we're going to install drywall repair. And the entire framework of our business model, our support team, our support model, our training methods, the software, the vendors, everything is exactly the same with some minor tweaks here and there. But Mm, operationally, the model of plumbing and drywall is now exactly the same. Same software, same approach. We train on the same thing. We even call the technicians and employees the same title across both brands. And I test piloted this for 2 years before going to uh, the CEO of and Mike and Mark Collins here at 100 Plumber said, guys, I got something cooking here. We need to franchise this. And that's exactly what we did. And here we are a year later. Um, we have three flagship locations. We have one franchisee. We're soon to have our second franchisee here. And it's a carbon copy of this wonderful, easy to learn operations model. But if plumbing is not for you, drywall is still a needs based business model with lower lead acquisition costs. Again, maybe not the license holder, so there's no need for a license holder there. But we're so super energized by launching this brand under our umbrella here. And yeah, we launched a couple of months ago. Happy to say that we might have a couple of franchisees in the pipeline here very soon. And just looking to have the same traction that we have with 1-800 Plumber here just now with Patch It Up drywall repair. So super excited to be one of the founding members of that brand and leading the charge on that. But I'm also here on the 1-800 Plumber plus Air side and kind of moonlighting in both brands here because I'm very passionate about what we're doing. And I believe that both brands are changing the way that home people are going to look at home service, people coming into their home and performing a service going forward.
Well, your passion for franchising and for the two businesses that you represent, Peter, is contagious. I always know that my candidates are in great hands when I send them over to you to learn more about 1-800 Plumber Plus Air. And now I'm excited to share the Patch It Up franchise opportunity as well with candidates interested in home service brands. Home services continue to grow. I mean, we're hearing anywhere from 8 to 14% year over year growth. And so delighted to have you on the Powered by Franchising podcast today. There's certainly a lot of power behind 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, as well as Patch It Up and your experience and the team around you. Any parting words before we wrap up the show today?
I just wanted to once again say thank you so much. This has been a wonderful time. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. A little check mark off my 2024 goals here was and getting on your podcast. So happy to check that off here late in the year. Looking forward to seeing you again in Orlando coming up in what feels like it just happened. So it's going to be less than a year now. We'll see each other again, but you're going to see both brands. And this time, actually, no, you took a picture with your championship belt.
I
We're gonna
have
get
it.
you.
We're gonna,
We're gonna
yeah,
we're gonna
I'll show
we're gonna.
it. So for those who are watching this on video, you can see a picture of it right here of us at Orlando. So
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to doing that again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on.
well, looking forward to getting some placements with you in 2025 and have a great rest of 2024, Peter.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.